Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, I already given y'all my testimony and shared a little bit about how I met the Lord and all that good stuff, from my past and whatnot. So, I'm gonna spend some time to go over various different moments that I've had with God, different ways that He expressed Himself in a world to show me that He was real and that He's love. And not just that He was real to me and He loved me, but how He was real to other people and loved those people. There was a time shortly after I got out of the military. I had moved into an apartment where my friend had owned. He wasn't living there yet. He was in the military still at the time, and he allowed me to stay in his place, which was nice of him because I didn't have anywhere else to go in the area. These would be considered crack apartments. Let me just kind of put that out there. It was in a downtown area, a lot of crime infested area, those type of things. I lived on the second floor. So one day, me and my soon-to-be wife, we were, engaged at the time. We weren't married. Gonna kind of cut to the chase. One of the biggest struggles I had once I got saved was to not be intimate with my future wife. And for some reason, no matter how many times I try to, tell myself and that, we're gonna get married, it's okay, it's just a piece of paper. Every time we would finish the act, my spirit would just feel bad. I just felt convicted about what I was doing. So this particular day or night, we were intimate. She ended up leaving, and I, of course, felt very convicted in myself. And I sat there on the ground, just praying to God, asking God to forgive me, letting Him know I was sorry for what I did. Struggling with this, Lord. I'm not gonna lie. And I sat there, and after I got done repenting for my sins and asking God for forgiveness, of course, I made a statement. I asked Him. And I said, Lord, what would you have me do right now for you? And I said that, and I heard in my heart, go knock on your neighbor's door. Without thinking, I get my shoes on, get up, go outside, and knock on my next door neighbor's door. Nothing happens. So I go back to my apartment. Now, keep in mind, this is probably about 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, Thursday night. Once again, crack apartments. And I thought, okay, God, maybe you just wanted to see if I was willing to do it or whatnot. So I say that, and all of a sudden in my heart I hear, no, knock on your other neighbor's door. I'm like, okay. So I go to the next neighbor down the hall. And it's an outside, balcony. So I go knock on the next door neighbor's door, and as soon as I knock on the door, I think, what the heck am I doing? All of a sudden, the door opens up. This old man, he ain't that old, maybe late 40s, early 50s, if that. Shirt off, tattoos all over. It's like, what's up, man? I said, hey, man, do you need anything? And I started fumbling, and I'm thinking, like, do you need anything? I don't have nothing to give this man. I'm living over here basically on the floor in this empty apartment. All I have going to eat is like bar-ass hot dogs. And if anybody knows, those are back in those days, 2004, that was the pack of hot dogs you got for $1. Okay, $1. And I had some ramen noodles. That was like all that I had because I was broke. I was no money. Okay, I got kicked out the army. My paycheck stopped. Okay, I had no money. A little bit of change I would scratch up every now and then. So I'm asking them and say, hey, man, you need anything? I just moved in down the hall. If you ever want to talk about God or anything, I'm a Christian rapper. And by this point, he just looked at me. He's like, all right. He closed the door in my face. So I go back to my apartment. I was like, all right, that was interesting, God. Then I sat down for a few minutes. I decided to start writing. I just doing my little writing, little poems, just spending time now with God, my own way. And within a few minutes, all of a sudden, I hear a knock at my door. So I get up, I open my door, and it's this guy. And he asked me, he says, man, let me ask you a question. Why'd you come knock on my door? I had to tell him, listen, man, I don't know you from a can of paint. I was just in my room repenting to God and asked him, what could I do for him? And he told me knock on my neighbor's door. When I spoke those words, this man had a cigarette in his mouth. His jaw just dropped. And he asked me if I would come with him back to his apartment. I was like, yeah, sure. So I followed him, got into his apartment, looked around. It seemed like a, somewhat decent apartment, I guess. And he tells me, he says, man, I was just in here in my house asking God that if he was there, he'd give me a sign. And then you knock on my door. That man was a crack addict. Completely inflamed into his crack addiction. And if you would believe that simple knock on his door completely changed that man's life. The next day, he's telling everybody out there in the parking lot, everybody who's coming in and out of their house, anybody that would hear him listen, what had just happened. And what he was saying, what God just did for him. Within a week, 2 weeks, he packed up and he moved into a rehab. He put himself into a rehab center. 5 years, maybe 4 years after that, could be more, I'm not 100% sure. I was leaving my job, and I went to go get gas at a gas station. And when I went to pull up at the pump, I looked, and I saw this man pumping gas next to me. And I said, Ron. And he looked at me. At first, he didn't recognize me, but all of a sudden he was like, and he goes to his truck and he's telling this lady in the front seat, and there's a man in the back seat. And he starts saying, hey, that's the guy I was telling you about when I was on that stuff, the guy that knocked on my door. He was talking to his wife in the front of his truck, and in the back was his oldest son. 4 or 5 years later, this man was still set free from the crack addiction. All because God sent a sinner just like him, crying out for mercy. Just give me a sign, God, that you're there and that you love me. And I'm not just doomed to my sin. I'm not just doomed here. I remember the church I was going to at the time, they had a testimony session. And this was one of the first times, this was really early in my salvation. This was probably within the first 3-4 months of me being saved. So I felt like I finally had almost a testimony I wanted to share. So I got up and I shared that story with them. And I remember seeing the look on people's faces. They were looking at me like I was almost crazy. Like, really? You're going to give that as your testimony in a sense? And I was like, wow. I guess because I'm not talking about how I'm getting a job promotion or how I got blessed with money or this, that, and the other. I guess to me, this was the coolest thing I've ever heard of in my life as far as following God or walking with Jesus. God knocking on the door in the midst of the hood, of the ghetto, and reached the crack addict. I guess a lot of people's theology says that God don't hear the sinner's prayer or hear prayers of the sinners. Well, obviously he does. And that's why he's an awesome God.